It's for the first time to use shape memory aligners or shape shifting aligners that have more than one shape. And these aligners would basically be worn for a specific period of time, let's say 1 week. Then the patients will have an instruction to boost that aligner in the specific device. So they throw it in there for 5 minutes, they take it out, they wear the aligner, and it's a new aligner. It's like it's the next aligner. Not new aligner means like the same one once again, but it's a new aligner in terms of being the next one in the sequence of the treatment with the same plastic mold.
Welcome, guys, to another episode of Mastering Aligners. We have got an exciting guest today, Dr. Sherif Kandil, who is an orthodontist and CEO of K Aligners, which is involved in 4D technology. And if you're a little bit confused as to what I've just said there about 4D technology, K Aligners, you're going to find out all that's happening in the world of aligners from Dr. Sherif today. So first and foremost, I want to say thank you, Dr. Sherif, for being here with us today.
Thanks to you, Arnold. Pleasure to be here, and very glad to conduct this discussion with you today.
Yes, so just give us a little insight into where you are at the moment, where you're based, and what a typical week is looking like for you. I know when I was messaging with you, you travel to conferences, you're here, there, and everywhere. So just give us a little insight into your lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm currently based actually in Düsseldorf in Germany. That's where I work, I live. But I originally come from Egypt, and that's where my studies and first career path started from. So I went to dental school in Egypt, in ASU University, and that's where I finished my bachelor's degree. And then I was so crazy about orthodontics that I went to kind of like internship or at one of my orthodontist practice, one of the very big and very famous orthodontists in Egypt back then. And I learned a lot about what aligners are, despite that he was a very big, let's say, opposer to aligners. But it got me, like really caught that, okay, this is very interesting. There's something out there that is very, very new, and especially in a country like Egypt, where a product like Invisalign does not have much of ground because it's super expensive for most of the society. And that's what got me super interested in this technology. And so I started actually my own practice where it focused only on clear aligners. And that's what I've been doing almost from 2008 to 2013. My practice was booming with patients coming in for clear aligners because I was almost the only one doing clear aligners back then in Egypt.
And no competition.
I'm sorry?
No competition in the aligner market.
Yeah, kind of thing. I mean, now it's like when I look at the market in Egypt and worldwide, I mean, and how crazy it is with aligners, I say to myself, my God, I mean, back then it was only me as one single clinic in the whole country providing aligners, and people standing like in lines, to get in, to have this plastic tray that would move their teeth.
And I just want to get a little bit more into that, because you trained in Egypt, and then you're now owning a practice, you're providing aligners. Just let me know what happened from finishing dental school, to you having a practice and providing aligners. What was that time gap like? Was it almost instant? Is that just how it is in Egypt? Just share some.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like have always this, big appetite for impact to some extent, and it kind of like drives me sometimes crazy, where I want to, like provide a solution that is scalable for everyone to benefit from, not just only for my patients or for like a restricted zone. And I moved actually from Egypt in 2013 to Germany, where I established K-Line Europe, while still working in different practices in Germany. And the goal was to spread and scale up the technology that I've been working on and focused on as an orthodontist, and been seeing it in my practice in terms of biomechanics, in terms of patient compliance, and many things that made me so frustrated that pushed me to find solutions out there, or innovative solutions
mm,
for improving the patient journey, for improving the biomechanics, for even integrating more and more intelligent technologies like Internet of Medical Things, AI, into orthodontics. I mean, we're going to talk a little bit about these things in a while, but this was the drive from seeing over 2,500 or 3,000 patients in my practice that
mm.
pushed me towards finding these solutions and accordingly to start to build a foundation for it through K-Line Europe in order to spread that worldwide.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so
what,
it
what
was
came first there? Was it you owning a clinic, or was it you getting into the use of aligners?
yeah, so it was. I mean, me owning the clinic. First of all, I mean that's what. I mean, it all started from me owning the clinic, and then the passion was to distribute aligners or to offer clear aligner therapies to patients through that
Mm,
clinic. That was
okay.
the main focus.
Mhm,
And again, I mean, from there, everything started to build up from there, from seeing and learning, experiencing things to okay, let's start to innovate, let's start to improve, and let's start to develop things that could really um, uh, improve the whole foundation of how clear aligner treatments are offered.
mm,
So many practices and so many doctors out there. So I started actually giving a lot of lectures, whether webinars or on-site lectures, about how to improve your clear aligner treatment outcomes in
yeah,
so many different case complexities, and tried to always adopt this holistic approach for our treatments because it was
yeah,
still kind of new and everyone was looking at treatments with aligners as it's limited to these kind of cases only, you cannot do this, you cannot do that, and so on. It's like, guys, it's all down to the clinician's experience. If the clinician has the experience and understanding, you could do so many things.
yeah,
But on the other hand, it's also the vehicle or the tool that you give the clinician in their hands that will make things happen. And that's
yeah,
where I was, focused on both
yeah.
since I
What
moved
what
to.
what gave you the insight to see that there's potential in this where everybody else wasn't seeing the potential in aligners? They're not effective. You're gonna have to finish and fixed anyway. What made you? What did you see that didn't make you stop
Yeah,
at this
yeah.
process?
Well, it's a very good question, Arnold, because it's one of the things that I a few years ago, and even before the direct to consumer business models that was going crazy all over the world,
Mm,
I was deeply convinced that aligners will be the future and that aligners will take over orthodontics.
mm,
um, it was like so deep inside that it was like every action I was taking was going the same direction. And funnily enough, is like I used to write a lot and used to write
yeah,
about whether it's my own ideas in terms of innovation, whether the market and where I see the market moving. And when direct to consumer businesses started, despite in its like its highest and its boom, I
yeah,
was so convinced that this is gonna eventually die one day. And until now, I like post on my LinkedIn, guys. Almost 5 years ago, I posted that this business model will die in 4 years,
yeah,
and here we are.
yeah,
Anyway, not our discussion for today, but excited to talk more about also the type of technology and how
yeah.
it came up with it, especially
And
the clear.
how were you developing, I guess, your approach with the liners? I'm sure there probably wasn't that much literature on it. How were you learning? Were there people that were teaching ways to handle case with the liners? We have to make it up yourself. Yeah, how do you navigate that and develop?
Yeah, I mean, there was back then a lot of literature available, despite the literature was like kind of either biased towards Invisalign or a
Mhm,
literature that is handling aligners being manufactured in a manual method, like the Essex methods.
mhm,
So it was kind of like split into those two. And throughout the years, I mean, I've been now in the aligner market for almost 10 years.
mhm,
You always see like companies come and stay or come and go, and then you start to see, okay, the literature that they bring in with them, the new
mhm,
technologies that they bring with them. So there was always continuous development. But I still remember the very first books that I used to have about aligners were still about this Essex technique, where you kind of like saw the model, the teeth, you move the teeth and you put it back into its new position with wax, and you take a photo and you superimpose the photos and so on. It was such a cumbersome method, but it's like back then I used to tell myself, it's never going to happen one day that anyone would work, digital like what Invisalign is doing, or this method of, this digital manufacture method. And it's
Yeah.
just a few years, all of a sudden you find, okay, desktop 3D printers, desktop scanners, everything is being more and more available,
Yes.
till the crazy point where we are right now.
Gosh. And then in terms of you setting up your plans, using aligners to um, work on your patients, how did you, so clinically, how did you develop the principles or the approaches to treating patients?
Yeah. So I mean, there was, throughout the years, I mean, many phases where I first started, to depend on myself first, doing the treatment plans by myself fully, and for specific kinds of cases where I did not approach actually like. Yeah, cases with a discrepancy of over 6 millimeters. It
Mm,
was like extremely too much. I didn't go for distalization, and
yeah.
even if I did after that, and the next phases, I used to use appliances for distalization, like carrier distalizer and so on. So I relied a lot on accessories.
Mm,
And that was like, okay, so first without accessories and with least attachments possible. Then I started to go into a phase where I started to use accessories a lot, and then started to decrease again accessories, and by time again started to use accessories more again. So it's a journey where you keep on learning continuously, and with how aligners, the scope of aligner treatments and how it's
mm,
expanding, you keep on learning all the time that there is no one way that you will keep on using right now.
yes.
So yeah, I mean, I've been always optimizing my methods of treatment, for my patients, to reaching this point of time where customization has reached a great degree, and my mindset in treating patients has changed over the years, for sure.
Fantastic. So you started out in Egypt, specialized, had your own clinic, found out that you really wanted to develop the aligner technologies, well, to develop your own set of aligners. You moved to Germany. So at this stage, have you got a family that you're traveling with? What's life looking like for you?
Oh, it's a little bit complicated,
Yeah.
but yeah, but I mean, family, definitely. I mean, moved with me to Germany,
Yeah.
and yeah, and then kind of like a new journey starts, moving or stepping into a country where you don't know its language, where you don't know its
Mm.
culture, or how business functions, or medical services and how they work. It
Wow.
was
So
a
you didn't
very
know any German at all?
Nothing, nothing at all, nothing at all. It was very, very tough, I have to say. It was extremely
Gosh.
tough. I mean, I mean, every phase, it has its own difficulty, obviously, but still,
Mm,
at the start, it was a very, very big challenge to get from where you were in a certain ecosystem to move to a totally different bubble and to do a totally different ecosystem.
mm.
But yeah, it was. I mean, good things come to those who wait, and who strive, obviously. So, yeah, I mean, currently, I mean, speak German. I understand, obviously, the whether the culture, the business, and the treatments, the type of malocclusions, even that we see mostly here. I mean, everything accordingly starts to shift.
Mm.
Yeah, private and career wise.
And I guess what was driving you, motivating you through that time to, you know, you've gotten to a certain stage in your life, specializing, having a clinic, that independence, and then you're having to start again from scratch. What was motivating you at that time?
It's good that you mentioned it that way, because that is exactly the right expression. I mean, I did start from scratch here. I didn't know anyone
Mm,
to help me or support me at the beginning. And if time allows, even to say that, I mean, when I moved to Germany, it's like I saved a bit of money, and then I put it here in business and to keep on going on with the studies and orthodontic studies and so on. And I almost lost all the money. I mean, many people just say, crazy, how did you lose your money?
mm,
It's really bad consultation, wrong decisions. Again, you don't know the culture, you don't know anything, so you get into a pot where you just make tons of mistakes.
mm,
But I obviously learned a lot of things out of these mistakes, and to the extent that I it brought me to a point where I was always broke, and I was thinking,
mm,
okay, I'll go back to my home country again and start over again. And my dad was one who told me, you know what, try again. I'll support you, but try one last time.
mm,
And you've definitely learned a lot from those mistakes. So you better you take the right steps moving forward. And
mm.
that's what I did. And it was a miracle that when I took that step once again, I was super careful and started to take some baby steps in the right direction till I started to walk really well. Then I started to run, and yeah, here I am.
So from what I'm gathering, you're not somebody who is afraid of taking risky moves, risky steps. Because I think about even me at this stage, if I was to move to a different country, move the family, start again. I don't know if I've got the appetite for that amount of change. What would you say was some key moments then once you had moved and you were now getting into the groove of things? What was some highlights and some key stages for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you have to put yourself into a position when you totally change, make a drastic change. I mean, first of all, it was a very big risk, and I'm a risk taker by nature.
Mm,
So you start to develop, this mindset of, like you're a warrior,
yeah.
where you just have to fight to reach your destination.
Mm,
And so many things happen throughout the way, and you get to again know wrong people, you get to take wrong decisions, and you keep on learning further and further. But in every single year that I spent outside home, I learned so many things that
mm,
made me a better person every single day.
mm,
So it's obviously being open to take risks and to learn from your mistakes it sounds very easy to say, very announced as well, but it is extremely tough and hard. But you have to keep the uh, the dedication
mm,
to your mission that you decided to embark upon from the start.
yeah. And so tell me about this transition to now you forming K-Line and how that came about.
Yeah. So when I moved to Germany back in 2013, and then I decided to start K-Line in 2014, with again the main focus on innovation. So it was the vision was redefining orthodontics through innovation. However, we didn't kickstart the business or go to market till it was end of 2016, beginning of 2017.
Yes.
And if, yeah, finding myself from being, the doctor who's going to the clinic every day, to all of a sudden, a CEO who should take a different kind of decisions, should think totally different,
Yeah.
and think of scalability at a different level, was a mind shift. Yeah, it was again mind shift, pivotal moment that I had to take, and it wasn't easy because still, like I was happy doing the clinical work, happy seeing
Yes.
patients, and just moving from that to that was really a big jump. But I enjoyed it so much. I think it's if you ask me right now, would you rather go back? I would say no. I'm happy. I'm happy doing business,
Yes.
because it's like you've being a dentist or an orthodontist, and being getting your experience or collecting your experience on
Mm,
on this level of dealing with the patient and dealing with the clinical problems and challenges,
yeah.
lets you understand the whole value chain.
Yeah.
And that's what so many MBA holders or CEOs in general in the live market, they could understand plastic, they could understand how business works, they could understand technology, but they never felt or lived how a dentist or orthodontist you know, has the how the day really works.
Mm.
Um, so I even make sometimes fun of it, but it is really true is that I kind of even did aligners for myself. So I was my first patient. Yeah. So I was a patient and then a dentist and then an orthodontist and even technician where I did the aligners by myself and manufactured by myself.
Yes.
Even with a very old Essex method, you know, again, manual moving of the teeth and so on, to the point where I'm an entrepreneur. So it's like I've
Mm.
seen it, you know, from, I mean, the good, the bad, and the ugly of the aligner market, if you could say.
And so just break it down for some of us that are not really aware of how this looks like. So, okay, you've decided that you want to develop your own aligners. Where do you even start? What do you get? What do you buy? Where do you get the plastic? Yeah, just break it down to what that looks like
Yeah,
initially.
yeah. As I mentioned earlier, like the main focus was on innovation, right? I mean, that was the main objective. The objective for me wasn't to scale up with a standard aligner method and, you know, like
Mm,
copy whatever is in the market, but rather to tackle on issues and problems that I've seen in my clinical experience. And the issues, the challenges that I faced was the predictability of the treatments, which was one of the big challenge that I think so many orthodontists and dentists out there face every single day in their audit cases, right? And the predictability not being to or up to par leads
mm,
to either mid-course corrections, a lot of refinements, um, patients not satisfied, all these kind of things that, you know, were for me a little bit frustrating to some point where you have to like tackle it backwards and say, where did this come from? How did this happen? Was it the plastic? Was it the treatment? Was it the compliance and so on? And this brings me again to also one thing is the other thing is the compliance, where it's extremely difficult. It's one of the biggest challenges in orthodontic treatments, if especially it's a removable orthodontic treatment, is compliance. It's the
mm,
biggest challenger. And looking at these points here, it combined with one very big problem that wasn't evident for me in Egypt, but when I came to Germany, it was very evident. Wow, which is you were using so much plastic in the lives, like crazy number of plastic.
mm,
And um, and then some companies, for example, say, yeah, there is 5 years guarantee for. It's like, yeah, you have got 5 years unlimited supply of plastic. Wow, that is not good to say.
mm,
Um, but actually, I'm not specifically mentioning a specific entity here. I mean, this is the norm in the whole market. So what I want to say is that then when I built Kalon, it was to solve these challenges: plastic predictability according to the biomechanics and improving the predictability and the compliance of the patients. And thus, I submitted even my first patent, which was related to that, which is the 4D technology that I wanted to share with you today. From those three big challenges, this is what brought up what 4D now is, or 4D aligners is. A
mm,
method, a solution, or a concept through which every doctor could benefit from, every company out there could benefit from, and accordingly, the patient and most of all, the planet would benefit from.
mm,
It's for the first time to use shape memory aligners or shape shifting aligners that have more than one shape, and these aligners would basically be worn for a specific period of time, let's say 1 week. Then the patients will have an instruction to boost that aligner in the specific device. So they throw it in there for 5 minutes, they take it out, they wear the aligner, and it's a new aligner. It's like it's the next aligner. Not new aligner means like the same one once again, but it's a new aligner in terms of being the next one in the sequence of the treatment with the same plastic mold. So this took us years of development to find the right plastic. Had to read a lot of material engineering to understand material science to understand how this works, and a lot as well in technology to understand exactly how to, you know, like activate the plastic using an electronic device that could be, you know, the heat water to a certain extent and so on. So it was like I was the doctor, the material scientist, the engineer, trying to, you know, work on these three angles of the triangle to get to have that product that that is now available in the market.
Yeah. So I just try and simplify things for myself. So you've essentially made the transformers of aligners. You can get three aligners in one. Um, how do you program three aligners into one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
How do you do that?
yeah, so it's pretty simple actually. I mean, it sounds first mind-boggling, but it's actually very simple, and it happens in the manufacturing process where the standard aligners when you want to prepare an aligner, you usually thermoform the aligner on that model, right? You so it's like sucks down on that model, and then you just trim it and so on, prepare it for the patient to wear, right? That's the standard. Now, what we did, or what I did back then, was to have this step done more than once. So it's for example that when after thermoforming the aligner, taking the aligner out, let's take the same aligner and we will put it on a different model. Yeah, on top of a different model that has a different movement or a different setup on it. And then it will
Mm,
be treated like as if it's thermoformed again, but in a different temperature, time, and pressure, so that it would take that shape temporarily. So now the material, the plastic, has one permanent shape it was thermoformed on at the beginning, and then
mm,
another shape, which is a temporary position, it was thermoformed on once again.
mm,
Now, these two memories, one current and one from the past, which was which was the permanent that we should the patient has to boost the aligner to get back to, is in a very simple way how the aligners are manufactured in order to have more than one shape. Now, you could do it on two models and have two shapes. You could do it on three models and have three shapes, whatever. And plus, this aligner, the patient wears it today and it feels like it's aligner number one. Let's say it is number one, right?
mm,
And then the patient will wear it for 1 week. It will do its job. It will move teeth according to the setup done in model number one. But then when the patient boosts the aligner, so they heat the aligner to a certain
mm,
temperature inside that booster, or even just put boiling water on it. Literally just put water in a kettle, boil it, put it on the
mm.
aligner in any container, and it will change to the new shape. So, and that what happens here, it moves in the thermoforming to the thermoforming shape that we did in the manufacturing, right? And they wear that aligner once again, and it transformed to aligner number two, or the next aligner in sequence.
Two questions here. So why stop at three? Is there some sort of limitation? Why can't I make the one aligner into 10 different shapes? Um, and then the second question is what happens with things like, because I guess some patients sometimes where they're saying, my liners really get discolored. Does it refresh when you do the change over to shape number two in terms of, any staining or anything like that? Yeah. So
Mhm.
those two questions there.
These are very, very, very good questions. So, first of all, it's I mean the aligners uh, currently, or let's say the material science, um, has certain borders or limitations. It's
Mm,
very easily said than done to use, for example, like 10 different models. Yeah,
mm,
but the material's capability of restoring its shape, even containing a specific shape, or being deformed so much to a certain extent. All these
mm,
have restrictions. And that's why currently it has the capability to have three shapes and be worn for 3 weeks, or even replace two or three aligners. But it's it's still impossible to go beyond that. And it's not like I don't believe it won't. It will one day reach that point. I mean,
mm,
material science is improving day after day, and it was like in the very first years, and from 2015 to 2018, I didn't find the right material to even apply that. It was just rocket science for me. I have an
mm,
idea. I don't have the material, but then more and more materials with very high, very good mechanical properties, very good shape memory started to come into the market, and that's what enabled me to have something in
mm,
hands in order to make that happen. So yeah, so that's concerning your first question. Yes, it is maybe possible in the future if material science get to that point.
mm,
The aligner being refreshed, that is actually a very good term, because it does actually refresh. And it
mm,
would refresh in maybe two ways. So one is patients, when they boost the aligner, it's more or less they're, with hot water, boiling water, you're cleaning the aligner, you're killing bacteria. Um, so you are refreshing the aligner, right? That's from like a hygienic perspective. But there is another important perspective for an aligner. Now, when you wear the aligner for like a week, what usually
mm,
happens, and many people do not realize that, is that the back teeth, it's like the buccal and the lingual edge, they like flange out. It's just like
mm,
open up like that. Yeah, because
mm,
it's, the mouth is a very harsh environment, as you know.
yeah,
And thus
mm,
this starts to happen due to, the clenching, the bruxism on the aligner. And when the aligner is boosted, what's super interesting here, okay, and we found that by absolute coincidence, is that those flanges, the buccal and the lingual, they like snap back again. So they
mm,
recover back to their original shape. Now we used to
mm,
boost because we were just, intended, to move whatever teeth that we wanted to move, right, in the setups, as I mentioned earlier in my example. But we
mm,
never focused on this phenomena where the back teeth, or the aligners at the back, would just snap back again to their original shape. Now, this
yeah,
is this is really a total game changer in terms of increasing the retention, having better anchorage. The aligner fits and it feels exactly like it is a newly worn aligner. So it's
oh,
regaining mechanical properties that really makes the biggest difference here.
yeah. And you talk about boosting here. Can you just talk a little bit more about what that process is, and how do I go from shape 1 to 2 and not from shape 1 to 3? How do I control which shape I'm going into? Can you even go back to a shape 1 when you get to shape 3? Yeah, can you just
It's irreversible. So it's irreversible. It always goes in one single direction. Yeah. So it's, I call it always like, it's the manufacturing process versus the boosting process the patient does, is like moving back into the future. Yeah. So it's 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 like when the patients start to boost the aligner, it always goes in one single direction in terms of
Mhm,
change. And the boosting is done in a specific temperature and specific time to allow the material or the plastic to remember or to change to a specific point
mhm,
that it needs to reach to. Yeah. So, for example, in order to reach step number one after the first week, it will be heated, for example, at, let's say, almost 70 degrees for
mhm,
5 minutes. Then the second boost, it would actually reach like almost 85 degrees and would be heated for 10 minutes. Now, with this extra heat, now it's actually reaching the almost the glass transitional temperature is called for the material, which is like the temperature through which those polymer chains start to like totally, relax and go
mhm,
to the very original shape they were thermoformed on, which is, again,
mhm.
I call it the permanent shape, because whatever the thermoforming is done, it's the permanent shape. Any
Yeah,
other shape we change it to is always a temporary shape. And that's the beauty of this method in the manufacturing, to enable the material to have more than one shape, is playing with these temperatures,
yeah.
time, pressure, and so on.
And how do you make it dummy proof? Because you're now relying on the patient doing what's
Yeah.
needed to get, well, first of all, to use the aligners for the initial period, and then to boost them to the next shape, and then to boost them to the third shape. How are you helping it be dummy proof, whether it's maybe app or the boosting device? How are you simplifying this?
Yeah. So it's surprisingly extremely easy to use, because first of all, the step is, it's always repeating itself, and it's all conducted through the mobile app, right?
Mhm,
So there were actually two, let's say, we call two products. There was one we call the classic, and one where we call the advanced. The advanced is using a mobile app, and the mobile app connects to the booster by Bluetooth, and then does everything for you. You don't need to do anything. It's it's illustrated in a very easy cartoonic way for the patients, just to follow the guidelines every single time the same way.
yeah.
And it's beautiful because, I mean, the mobile app gives just more than just reminding the patient and boosting the aligner, but also it gathers some information, collects some data on the behavior of the usage, as well as in the future we're integrating more things like lifestyle of the patient, as well as health parameters that are going from
Mm,
smartwatches, and they feed into the app, and accordingly the doctor will be able to monitor more signs and symptoms of the patient lifestyle and say, okay, should I change something? Should the patient accelerate the treatment? Should the
yeah,
boosting sessions be shorter, etc., etc.? All these things will be suggested by the mobile app to the doctor in order to give the decision whether
yeah.
the treatment should change or not. Now, there's an even easier one, which is the classic I just mentioned earlier. Now the classic is the funny one where you just get like hot water, you boil it, you put it on the liner, and that's it. And it has only
Yeah.
two shapes. So
Yeah.
instead of being worn 3 weeks, it's worn only for 2 weeks. And this one is like extremely, extremely simple. Where again,
Mm.
there's no booster, no app, and for patients who just want it super simple.
Yeah.
So these are the two ways that we managed to make it very dummy proof for everyone.
Yeah. I'm just trying to imagine. I guess when you do something a bit differently, it comes up. It brings out new issues or potential issues. So I'm just thinking. Let's say I'm on a liner number 15, and I lose my aligners. I need to go back to 14 or 16, or how do you then work out how to get the patient into that set number, because you've got two or three shapes in the aligners. Yeah. Are
Yeah.
you, number one, are you finding that there's these new issues coming up? And number two, how are you approaching that?
Yeah. So it's also very simple in terms of like if you lose, for example, when we have it in the instructions for use for the patients, if you lose the aligner in the first week, yeah.
Mm,
So before you boosted it at all, then you could go back one previous aligner, as you would usually do in any standard aligner treatment, right?
mm,
If you boosted that aligner already, then we would recommend to go to the next aligner. If this is let's say the standard also in comparison to standard aligners. If you worn the aligner for a few days already and it fits well, it doesn't hurt, whatever, you move to the next one, or you try to move to the next one already if it was lost. Otherwise, you go to the previous one. And we tend always to tell doctors better tell the patient to wear the previous aligner once again,
mm,
and then we will send a replacement. That would be much better than just moving ahead forwards.
yeah,
However, I'm saying it because it is still possible to move forward theoretically. Um,
mm,
the third, because the third, actually the second and the third shape are in very small, minute movements.
mm,
So, or very minute setups. And that's what makes it very easy to shift from even, one shape to another, or
yeah,
wear the last aligner once again, if you were in the first week of wearing the aligner before boosting it.
yeah. No, shape shifting aligners. It's exciting, definitely to hear about. Have you done studies or cases where you've had a similar type of case, one with the 4D technology, one without the 4D technology, just to see how things are progressing? I know there's only so much you can do to make two different cases as similar as possible, but have you tried different experiments like this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so what we did actually was an approach where we had almost 10 patients. I mean, it's a study that we will be publishing soon. So we took 10 patients and we started with very standard aligners, okay, for almost mid of the treatment. And then we shifted all those patients to the Clear X or the 4D aligner treatment to have
Okay.
for the same patient a very, let's say, called like apple to apple comparison in terms of tracking of teeth, in terms of compliance of the patient, feedback of the patient on what is um, more exciting or even a disadvantage. I mean, the super interesting thing is that the tracking of teeth improved moving forward with the 4D aligners by over 50% in terms of
Mm,
teeth tracking. What's also very interesting was the comments from the patients or the feedback from the patients. Um, I mean, first of all, like there were almost out of 10, there were almost like 6 or 7 who would say, "Really? Does this thing really work?"
yeah,
That was one of the things that we recorded as feedback first for the patients when we were told how this new method will work for them,
yeah,
and all of them were extremely excited um, using the 4D aligners because it involves more engagement of the patient. You feel like you're part of the journey and you're not just wearing dummy aligners anymore, but you're literally part of the journey itself,
mm,
and you're doing something by yourself every week, and you see the change, and that at itself increases the compliance of the patients. We're working a lot also on proving through evidence-based orthodontics here to compare the compliance of patients um,
mm,
between standard aligners and the 4D aligners Because I mean, so far all the results that we had proved to us that compliance increases many folds in
Yeah.
comparison to standard aligners.
All right. No, very good. In terms of the who it's available to, the 4D aligners, the clear aligners, is it just for people within Europe? How are you onboarding clinicians? What's that process looking like at the moment?
So we just officially launched it on the IDS in Cologne in March this year. I mean,
Mm,
before the IDS, we had only 5 distributors. After the IDS, we have like 40 distributors in total. So it's an amazing ride just after the IDS to serve 40 distributors worldwide. Mostly the focus is still in Europe. However, we're also available outside Europe in different countries. The US is still on the way, so hopefully next year we should be also introducing ClearX for the first time in the US.
mm,
Yeah, so it's quite a ride, and we're looking forward to have this spread out everywhere.
yeah.
One thing that I didn't mention, which is the ClearX, despite itself being a brand, but it's not about the brand. What we're trying to do is to raise awareness about this technology right now.
Mm,
And by mid of 2024, the optimal goal is to have this in the hands of everyone. Every provider for aligners out there could benefit from having this technology. So
yeah.
we're bringing it, making it available through whether private label, whether through licensing. It's out of moral obligation to have this available for everyone to use, and being absolutely agnostic. At the end, it is a very big benefit for, again, the clinician, the patient, as well as planet Earth.
Yeah. I know there was a friend I treated with clear aligners, and he was asking me if there was a way to recycle all the aligners that he had. Just tell me about the difference in terms of recycling through your aligners as opposed to any other type of aligners.
Yeah, well, let me start with the following. I mean, any plastic. I have here right next to me a plastic, cup here that says on it the sign of recycling. From all the statistics that we've seen, the the reality of recycling, first of all, is very shocking, because there is less than 7% of all the plastic that we throw out there as recyclable plastic and is recycled. It's just
Mm,
done because of one thing. It's just too much. It's just too much plastic. We don't have the resources to recycle everything.
mm,
Um, Now, that's number one. Number two is that recycling an aligner as a medical product that's been used is not hygienic, nor is it possible, for so many reasons. Um,
mm,
the the only possible way is to create clean energy through it. So you send it to any company, those who could actually use it to create clean energy, or to shred it and use it for something else, not to be used for any medical use anymore.
mm,
Um, Now, these are very, very cumbersome, especially if you want to tell patients, "Hey, send back the aligners." I mean, who's going to pay for that, and who's going to arrange all this logistics? It's just a logistic nightmare. The best
mm,
is just cut the plastic production in the first place. That's the
mm,
goal. And we started now by decreasing it 50% average through the 4D technology. And our goal by 2025 is to go down to even 70% reduction in plastic.
mm,
We're working on so many developments in the back end to do that. That's going to enable all the advantages that I've mentioned, and way more. Actually, if I have another hour, I could talk so much about the biomechanics, which I didn't have the opportunity to talk about. But there are a lot of advantages in terms of biomechanics as well, and not just only in decreasing the plastic and the compliance, and as I mentioned earlier, also improving the treatment and optimizing it or customizing it throughout the way itself is at itself a very, very big advantage. So we're just scratching the surface, Arnold, for so many advantages yet to come.
yeah.
And we're just opening that door for everyone to use, because we believe that not just that the technology and the biomechanics will bring it to a different level, but also,
Mm,
which I think very interesting for many companies out there, is that your costs also reduce massively, right? So you're decreasing your operational costs, as well as your cost of goods, by you're slashing 50% out. So
mm,
why not do that and while still benefiting from all the benefits of the 4D technology, right?
Just give us some highlights as to the advantages and with the biomechanics. I know we haven't got time to go into the nitty gritty, but just give us some highlights as to what can be possible now.
Yeah, I'll give you a little glimpse on it. So actually, what we patented was something called the recurrent aligner method. So the recurrent aligner is as follows: it's every single aligner is actually overlapping the other. So the last shape of an aligner is overlapping the first shape of the next aligner.
Mm,
Now, the advantage of this is it's almost eliminating any teeth lag. It's consistently making sure that every single aligner is like refining it, if you may say,
mm,
or retaining it at a certain stage or shape before it moves on to the next stage. And
mm,
despite of that, it's still faster than so many aligner methods out there because it's like you're using every single week in a specific movement. You're having like tiny increments of movements
mm.
that bring up or compile together into a bigger movement,
Yes.
while throughout the way you are always constantly making sure that it is on the right path. Trying to
Mm,
put it in very, very simple words. I mean, we give lectures about this and talk about it for at least like 30 minutes or something and give many examples. But
yes.
that's one remarkable thing in this method. And it's you could consider it as like the comparison between the hare and the tortoise race, right? So it has small, tiny movements that reach the end result faster than any standard aligner out there.
Yeah. Potentially, you might find that there's even a benefit to limiting root resorption and all kinds of risks that we can sometimes face. I can see visuals and animations looking quite good for this. I don't know if you've got any or if there are some to come in the future, but I can see it looking very cool in terms of demonstrating what's possible.
Absolutely. I mean, what we actually always do is the following. Is like one of the two things we do is either like if someone on a trade show, we just do a demo on site and we show the doctors how the aligner changes its shape. What we also do is that, and we could do that together actually later, is that you just send me a scan of your teeth, and I'll
Yeah.
send you a liner where it's going to be fitting on your standard current, so no
Mm,
movement at all. Then I want you to boost it and try to wear it again and then
yeah.
experience the 4D
Uh,
effect by yourself.
Fantastic. I mean, is there anything else that you would add to what we've spoken about today that you'd want to share with everyone?
I would urge everyone to be more mindful for sure first about the plastic waste. I mean, the market, the lighter market is increasing at a compound annual growth rate of around 20%.
Mm,
And we're manufacturing collectively in this market almost 1.2 million aligners per day. That's a
mm,
lot of aligners, right? And this has to stop before it gets out of control.
mm,
The only way to do that is to stop manufacturing so much plastic in the first place, rather than finding how to get rid of all the plastic garbage that we throw out there.
mm,
So that's one thing that I would really love that everyone would be more mindful about. And it's done through this way or many other ways. As a clinician, you could always, try to cut down the treatment into smaller batches rather than getting the whole batch, and getting into many potential mid-course corrections. So there are several ways how you could, as a clinician, start by yourself to decrease the plastic waste. And
mm.
yeah, that would be my message that I hope that everyone would somehow spark something inside them to do something about it.
Yeah. And okay, for dentists that want to find out some more, or maybe even start to use your aligners, what would be the steps in terms of treatment planning? How does that even work? You said you've distributed to different labs now. How would the treatment planning process work for each clinician? How do they get involved and started on this journey?
Yeah. So, I mean, we have many providers, and this could be found on our website,
Mm,
where we could guide them to one of our providers accordingly. Or if they want to deal directly with us, if there's no provider or distributor for them in their country. And it works in, let's say, more or less the same manner how they, submit a case for aligners anywhere, where, you have an account on the portal, you upload all the data that is needed in order to create a treatment plan. and a treatment plan is created. They could modify anything if they need in the plan, approve it. Then the whole batch of the aligners and the booster is sent accordingly to the practice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, again, the main goal that we're looking at is to spread this out through private labeling and licensing it to others to manufacture.
Mm.
So it's like the B2B2B kind of
Yeah.
method.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, we're always open for yeah. We call them the ones who want to join the 4D move, whether it's a dentist, orthodontist. They're more than welcome to join that move.
No, fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on today and really sharing your story, your journey, and all the exciting things you're doing with K-Line as well. Um, I
My
hope
pleasure.
everybody has been able to really get something of value. There's been plenty in this, whether it was moving, country and starting all over again for a dream, a vision that you've got, or whether it's the fact that you can be able to go into business and research and producing a new product whilst also still working as a clinician. The possibilities that are there when you're really passionate about something and driven to do something. So, Dr. Sherif, thank you so much for coming on and sharing
My
everything.
pleasure. Thanks for having me today, Arnold. It's been a pleasure. And yeah, looking forward maybe to our next round where you already have your ClearX aligners or the 4D aligners already.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Have a good day. Thanks.